Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're unboxing the NZXT Function 2 Mini TKL or MiniTKL. I don't know how you pronounce it. These names for products are getting really stupid. But this keyboard is not stupid. Instead of mechanical switches, this one has lasers. So I am very much looking forward to this, and I've been looking forward to checking this kind of keyboard out for a long time. Because who doesn't enjoy some freaking laser beams? And the interesting thing is they are still fully mechanical. We'll get onto that later, exactly how it works. But yeah, let's jump into it. And you can see that I had a little bit of a struggle getting to the box, but I was finally victorious. Now this is a UK layout for this keyboard, USB-C, and of course it's missing the numpad. This is the mini size. And after opening this up, you'll notice that we have our keyboard in a soft bag. Now let's take that out and we'll get a look at the rest of the components that come in the box. And of course, I think most of this is recyclable too, so nice packaging overall. And then behind here, you can see we have our different parts. Now, when I was pulling these out, I did not realize I missed something. It was in the folds of the box. So we got our keycap puller, we've got our USB Type-C cable, and then we have a few different switches. Not technically switches though, so we'll get onto that a little bit later. This is all to do with the lasers. But there was one other item in there, I just didn't see it because it was in the folds, and that was the actual switch remover. So we'll find out later. But yeah, nice USB Type-C cable you got in here that you can use, of course, to plug it into the back of the keyboard and connect up to your PC. And this means easy replacement, or if you wanted like an extra long cable or extra short cable, you can obviously just switch them out to whatever you would like. Then we have some switches, and we've got the keycap remover. Of course, this is for removing the actual plastic bit, which is the actual keycap with, of course, like A, B, or whatever on top of it. And then we have what I would say is not switches, because these are a little bit different. So let's take a little look at one of these, and I'll show you what's going on. Because normally when you get a switch for a keyboard, it has a few different things in it, maybe 3 or 4 different bits of plastic, a spring, and 2 contacts, because of course it is an electrical switch. Hence the name mechanical keyboard, because it is actually a mechanical switch. But if you look here, there's 2 pieces of plastic, and there's a spring inside, and that's it. There's no contacts, there's no electrical pass-through or anything like that. There's no electrical switch. It also means there's less that can go wrong with this, but of course we can still replace these with different switches, because they can still have different springs and all that to make them feel different. So let's move on to the main attraction, which is the keyboard itself. Let's remove it from its recyclable bag. And as you can see, the keyboard here is very nice, and it's made from metal and plastic. So the part below the keys, so that kind of base plate, is 3mm of aluminium. So this thing is actually pretty damn tough, but also very, very light, which is really, really nice. And for this one being a mini, this is probably going to be a travel keyboard for me, so having it be lighter is, I think, going to be an advantageous thing. Now let's have a chat about its features. So you can see that we got buttons along the left-hand side here, and also a wheel which controls the volume, so that's quite nice to have. And those other buttons I'll show you later once the keyboard's on, are on the side of the keyboard. Then of course we've got no numpad here. You can see the setup we've got for all our keys. We've also got the addition of an NZXT key, which of course you can rebind to whatever you want. Now, before we actually switch this thing on, let me show you the secret sauce in here. So here's our keycaps underneath, or our switches underneath the keycaps. And we've got the other tool. This is the one that was hiding in the box that I didn't initially see. And this one's for removing the switches. And you'll notice that there's teeny little clips at the top and bottom. So you just get in here and you just squeeze on each side, and then use a little bit more pressure than I'd like to get it out. And I am a novice at this. As you can see, I'm not going around removing switches from keyboards very often, although I do have a whole bunch of mechanical keyboards now, as they are awesome. I do not go into the, I don't go as deep as actually removing them. But what we're going to notice here is once this is out, there's something quite different from what you would normally see here. So there's 2 little pieces either side, and there's a big bit at the top. The big bit at the top is just the LED for lighting up the keyboards. But the 2 bits either side, those are a laser emitter and a laser receiver. And these switches, they push down and they cut the laser, which of course inputs the keystroke on your computer. So there's no switch really here at all. It is actually done with freaking laser beams, and I love it. Now, this means you can't go and just chuck in any switch here because there's no contacts to put it on, there's no position for it to go into, so it's very different from your usual mechanical switches that you might have heard of. But ever since I heard about this technology a long time ago, I was always kind of hyped to see if I could get one of these keyboards someday. So I'm super happy to be checking one out. And it is quite cool because you can very much tune this into however you want with different switches, because you can have the laser get cut off quicker, so it'd be a less of a press, or you can get it cut off later, so for a harder of a press. And of course, the switches can have different springs in them for different resistance. So there's a lot you can do with these, and I freaking think it's cool. So yeah, let's actually switch this freaking thing on now, shall we? Oh yeah, and as I showed you in the box, you get 8 different switches that you can use, and these have different like activation stuff, and these are great for your arrow keys or your WASD. Now let's actually check out the keyboard, and we'll have a look at the software. So the software is pretty good and pretty reasonable. It's NZXT CAM. You can see here that we can actually rename the keyboard if we want to. So if you had multiples of these keyboards, you can actually rename them. And that way you can keep track of any different profiles that you've uploaded to those different keyboards. Maybe you have one for gaming, one for production, or something like that. And the great thing is, of course, that you don't need the software to be running. You can just actually save it all to the keyboard and it will remember everything. Now, we're going to go through all the different kind of lighting to have a look at some of the different stuff. I'm a big fan of reactive lighting, so we'll take a look at that. But yeah, you've got plenty of options. And here you also have a lot of advanced options with the switches as well, which is quite nice. So you can change how they kind of activate depending on what you would prefer. So lots of, adjustability here, and I'm a big fan of these lasers right now. So anyway, let's take a look at reactive, I guess, and see if we can come up with something cool. So of course you can kind of take like a base color, and then you can have like a reactive color and see how it all ends up going. So we're going to try, for instance, rainbow. And certainly that is a little bit too showy, but freaking cool. And I do love my reactives. I have on my normal keyboards usually are reactive, so when I press a button, the button just changes color to something else. Simple, but looks really nice. These ones are a little bit more distracting, of course, but you can go with whatever you want. You can go as subtle or as complex as possible. And you can see here that I had an absolute blast just trying different stuff. We've got the LEDs off here now with only reactive showing up. And I just love it. I just think it looks great when you have all these crazy stuff going off everywhere. But now we should have a chat about the customization of the actual keyboard when it comes to buttons and stuff. So as soon as I'm done having too much fun with the LEDs, so we'll go across to here and we'll hit the remap keys. So we've got a keyboard here, and you can see we have on the left hand side all the different buttons that we can customize to our heart's content, and you drag them over to the tiny little keyboard and try and drop them onto the little keys. Don't think it's the most intuitive to use, and you can't seem to rebound the escape key and like the volume thingy and the side buttons as well. But for the most part, you can do 99% of the rest of it, and you can customize them however you want with whatever you want. It's a simple enough thing, and yeah, no real negatives or problems with it at all. Now, before we move into conclusion, we'll have a look at the side buttons now. So of course, you've got that little thing that you can rotate up and down to increase or lower volume, really good. You've got a mute button here that lights up, and you've also got a Windows lock key as well, which is handy. And then you've got the brightness control, so you can actually change the brightness of the keyboard. And now we can jump into conclusion. So this is a very nice keyboard. I like that it is all plastic because without the numpad, this is my travel keyboard. And I think it's going to be really good to lug around. So I think it's brilliant. I also love the lasers and all that, but it's definitely not perfect. So one thing that is kind of a bit odd is the supports for the actual keys that are bigger, so the big ones. To stop them rocking, they've got an interesting setup going that makes I think it makes the sound of the audio on the keys a little bit duller or something. There's something definitely not quite as good, but I will say they do end up supporting the keys very, very well. So I don't think there's any major issues here with it. And I think they have improved this. I did see a previous review that really complained about this, and I don't think it has the same issues that it used to have. Now, I don't have the best setup here to record audio for these keycaps, but I will let you listen to it. But just be noted, I don't have the best setup, of course, for actually recording this, and the audio is not perfect, but it hopefully will give you an idea of the different noises for different keyboard presses. So we've got the mouse and we've got the arrow keys as baseline examples. And then my final point is the ergonomics. There's one little issue I have, and that is if you pick the keyboard up and move it around, the side buttons are kind of annoying because I could easily end up accidentally hitting the volume controls when I'm moving it or things like that. It could be very annoying. And then usually on my computer, I have my computer set to a certain volume and I love it. And that, I don't usually go up and down too much. So I'd be kind of annoyed if I accidentally went and popped this up. So you can see if you're lifting up your keyboard, you're usually going to have your hands very close to these buttons on the side. And I think it's quite easy to tap them and activate them by accident or change the volume. But that is not a major issue for me because I do not move my keyboard that often. So this may not be an issue, and I actually do like the buttons being on the side. Now, because I'm going to use this as a travel keyboard, it could become an issue where I'm in a hotel and I'm moving it around much more than I normally would. But I don't think it's going to become too much of a problem. And I like having the option of the volume control. And yeah, overall, this keyboard is lovely, very good for traveling with. And the build quality seems excellent. I love the laser switches. I'm a big fan of them already. And I could see myself using these in future keyboards as well. But anyway, that is the Function 2 MiniTKL keyboard, and I highly recommend it. The only thing I would maybe recommend otherwise is if you do want a wrist rest, you get one for free with the bigger keyboards with a numpad, whereas you don't get one for free with this small one. And this one actually is missing the magnets to attach the NZXT wrist rest. Then you want to go for the bigger keyboards because it's included and they already have the magnets on the keyboard for it. So that's the only thing really to note. Otherwise, this is very much a recommendation for this, and I do think it's a very, very good keyboard, well worth it.